subside.
All right, welcome everybody to your health transformation and Healthy Self podcast. So excited to be here with everybody today. Hopefully, everyone's having a beautiful, amazing Thursday morning. This is Kate Archibald with Director at East West Health with Anodyne, and just really excited. So, I'm going to be your host and moderator today. If you have any questions, if you're live on the webinar, type questions in the chat box. We will cover those and answer those. Let's kick this thing off. So really excited. We got a really cool guest today. Our typical presenter, he is here with us, the OG Regan Archibald. Regan, how's it going?
Really good.
Awesome. Joining us from the Go Wellness headquarters there. Beautiful day I'm in St. George. It's gorgeous down here. Gorgeous in Salt Lake this morning.
It's nice. Really nice, Salt Lake. And Chick's up there, and let's see, Chick, you're in Emigration Canyon?
Yes.
How is it up there?
Oh, heaven.
Love it. Well, we have a really, really cool guest on today. Chick Booner, is that how I pronounce it? Chick?
Beaner.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you on. Chick's gonna be diving into some brain health and spiritual recovery. The keys to healing addiction with Chick Beener and Regan. So, little bit about Chick. Chick's been living sober for many years. Worked with many alcoholics, addicts, trying to live a sober lifestyle with his own experience and theirs. He's been able to confirm the translation of brain and body reactions to chemical reactions. For example, what happens to us prior to a spree: hunger, anger, loneliness, and exhaustion, which are all perfect ingredients for nightmare overdosing. So this proves the theory: clean the body and the mind will follow. Love that. So, Chick, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on. I'm going to take on the kind of the moderator seat. I'm going to pass the baton to Regan here. Regan's going to be asking the questions and everything. So if anyone has any questions, I'll make sure those get answered. Let's Regan, I'm going to have you take over with Chick. Look at that beautiful background. That's awesome.
I know, it looks great, Chick. And just a quick announcement before we jump in. We did finish our 100-day challenge, so congratulations. We have some of our 100-day challenge people on here, so really proud of you guys. We met last night, and we are, you are going to have an opportunity, each one of you, to enroll now into our 100-day challenge. And so we'll be, that's our sponsorship for this show. So if you guys get a chance, and we'll plug that into the chat box if you could. For those of you who want to get enrolled with our in our next challenge, get going on that. So love to see you in there. Some of the big takeaways that we got from the challenges was that some of us put on muscle mass, like myself. Some of us lost weight. But the biggest thing we all received out of that whole process we went through was clarity and a sense of community like we've never seen before. So really want to express my congratulations to all of you who made it. And for those of you who are not there, we're now opening it up to a whole new group. So come on in and join us. All right. Well, Chick, really happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And, Chick and I always have the best conversations, and he's just an incredible individual. I said, well, I got to get you on the show so we can talk about this. So Chick, maybe you could give people a little background about yourself and your journey. And I really want to know what makes you tick.
Well, okay. have no idea where to start, so I'll start in the middle
Perfect.
and work both ways. Over the years, I've been in contact with many recovering alcoholics. All of us have one thing in common. And well, actually, we have a lot of things in common. But the big thing is that we have recovered. Sometimes, takes a long time, and it's like an airplane jet lag is coming down, but it bounces a couple of times before it finally. And we talk about those experiences with each other. The program that I follow is the 12-step program, and it's really, really simple. But to an alcoholic mind, it's impossible. So what we call it is, how can I say, the impossible becomes impossible if we follow a few simple steps. Now, in my experience, I was really a stubborn character, and I was following my addictions. Everything was about the addictions. When we would talk about going on a vacation, I would think about going to the pubs and drinking with the local people, and instead of, like, we went back to Williamsburg, Virginia, and all of those historical sites back there. And all I wanted to do was try the rabbit and the brew, and and that was my reality. And we were all like that. That's how we were focused. It always ends in jails, institutions, or death. And translate that, well, I got a DUI back in 1984. And now the way we look at these things is coincidences. Are they really coincidences? Or is it a force or power that's working for us that we don't know about? And how we look at that is it's a spiritual sort of experience when we look back. And in order to recover from addictions, we need a stronger power to rely on than just us and me, and I can do it myself sort of a thing. So that translate that we need a sort of a spiritual program. And my conversations with you have been, what goes on in our body that a spiritual profound experience or realization can change and help change our personalities. And I'll give you an example. I got this DUI, and then I guess that was in December of 1984. And in February of 1985, the judge sentenced me to go to a program up at the University of Utah that he said was brand new and cutting edge technology. I don't know, it's called New Directions.
Okay.
And it was a 2-day course on a Saturday and a Sunday. So Saturday was just all day long with a bunch of people that had DUIs too, but we were all, like up there, and everybody was stiff with each other. We weren't about to give away any information to anyone. And all they gave us the whole day was just statistics and talked about alcoholism and blah, blah, blah. And I went home that night and used up some of my stash, I think probably all of it. And the next morning, I was just prepared for another day of that BS. You know, nobody's going to tell me what to do. And they threw a curve. There was a guy dressed in black sitting there, and he had a big scar on his cheek. And they introduced him, and that he had been sober for 4 years. 4 years. And, you know, I was a proud owner of 26 years of falling down drunk and cocaine, marijuana, Percodans, and Valiums, and everything else that goes with it. And man, that's kind of seemed interesting. And then he started off, and this is where it changed. I had a little change. He told his story on what his life used to be like, which made me, in my mind, flash through the same things. It was so similar that I thought for sure that he had got my records, that he'd been watching me all these years, you know. And then he talked about what happened. And I'm thinking, that's happening to me right now. And I really identified with him. And then he talked about what his life is like now. And that's what I had wanted all along. And so needless to say, 4 years later, or 4 days later, I called up the hotline and said, this is that phone call. What should I do now? And I was still drunk from the night before, because he told me, the fellow at the seminar, that if you don't think you have a problem, just go to the nearest bar and practice some controlled drinking. Have a couple of drinks, then go home. Well, I did that on Monday night, as soon as I got off work. And by 8 o'clock, I was drunker than I had ever been. So Tuesday morning, that's an important day to us, Tuesday morning, because most of us really finally show up on a Tuesday morning. It's never Monday morning. And I asked the lady when she answered the phone, this is that phone call. What should I do now? And she said, and this was in 1985, and you could tell that she'd been a smoker all her life. You know, well, it's time for you to start coming to the meetings and see how the rest of us stay sober. And I wasn't expecting that. But she gave me the whole deal in one sentence. Coincidence? This whole thing. I was ready. And I had had a whole series during this last prior year of horrible pain and problems and losing my family and divorce and just all that. And we learned that we're hitting our bottom. And that means the end is near. The end of what? So these series of coincidences. So I went to the very next meeting, and when I called, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and I went to an AA meeting on at noon, and I drove around the building a couple of times, watching the people go in there, and I decided I was going to go in anyway. There was kind of a rough looking crowd. And but when I got in there, it really wasn't. There was a guy wearing a white shirt and a tie. Imagine in it, and I still know that guy to today, to this day. And I went on regularly and found that we needed to rely on spiritual principles. And of course, when you talk to alcoholics or drug addicts, we believe that there's no such thing as God, because where was he when I needed him? Ta-da! The coincidence.
Right.
That's when I talk to you, Regan, what goes on in our heads when we have a sudden realization, and that can help transform our what do you call it, chi, or and I had a series of those, and I began to look back. In our program, we are it won't work for us unless we realize that we have been powerless over our drugs, whatever the ones that chose us, and that we were powerless our whole life. We were powerless over, and we were always struggling to get the courage to have this power. And we didn't know that this addiction, and it can be any kind of an addiction besides just drugs and alcohol. We can have food addictions. We can have egotistical addictions. And one time I was in a bar down in Price, and we all would get there at 5 o'clock after work, and some lumberjacks, big old mean lumberjacks with beards, and they were all 2-3 inches taller than the rest of us, and came in, and they started fighting with each other. And one of the girls that worked there was trying to break up the fight, and one of these big guys swung and missed who he was supposed to hit, and hit her.
Oh.
So all of us local guys jumped on this guy, and I just happened to be the one in the front, right up next to his face, and was down on the ground, and we finally got him and threw him out. But the face he remembered was mine. So he was gonna get me. And you know, when you have a resentment and an anger, especially when it's fueled with substances which fueled us, we lived on angers and resentments, and that's what drove us. That's another. What are the chemicals in our brains that happens? And that's how these spiritual experiences, I think, affect those in the same way.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing to think about, because, you know, you and I have talked about addiction, and I think everybody on the show right now has, you know, either you're struggling with your own, you've transformed these addictions into something more powerful. I mean, I have a lot of respect for you, Chick, because you've taken this, you know, these addictions that you've had, and you've really metamorphosized yourself into something even greater. And so, yeah, if we look at some of the things that drive addictions, well, we have this neurotransmitter called dopamine, and dopamine is what feeds that prefrontal cortex. And without dopamine, there's not that reward center. You know, when you're a kid and you like make your bed or clean your room, and your mom says, you know, good job, Chick, and you feel that sense of accomplishment. Or, you know, you get a good grade in school, you win a basketball game, or you make the team. I've got a son right now who's trying to make the basketball team. So that's been the story around our house. Like this morning, it was like, hey, Dad, if I make the team, are you going to come to all my games? I'm like, oh, yeah. That same son actually made this beautiful steak for breakfast this morning, which was kind of random, but it was tasty. But you know, that's dopamine that fuels that. And so when you start going down the pathway where you need something outside of yourself to fuel the dopamine, that's where you start ending up with that hollow feeling. So, you know, you used alcohol and drugs, and we've all used one thing or another to feed that dopamine rush in our brain. But pretty soon it's kind of like the pacifier, you know, and if you can't get it, then that dopamine just gets driving more and more scarcity in your life, and you get more and more resentment, less power, unless you have that dopamine influx, which is usually, you know, if depending on what you're addicted to, it can be the dopamine comes from alcohol, it comes from pornography, it comes from food, it comes from, you know, I guess fill in the blank, from work. I guess, you know, you mentioned ego. And I thought that was pretty interesting because we can get really addicted to the ego and that false sense of confidence and pride that we all have. And we have to stand up for ourselves and defend everything that someone says that's wrong about us. I mean, that's a pretty strong addiction that you came across there. But yeah, I think dopamine is one of the big ones. But then on the other side of that, then you've got oxytocin in there, and oxytocin is that feeling of connection. And so the spirituality that you talk about, Chick, is where oxytocin kicks in, where you know, an oxytocin can come just by putting your tongue behind on the roof of your mouth, behind your teeth, and you take a deep breath in and then exhale, and just like so, like nice breathing patterns. In Zen Buddhism, we'd breathe in, breathe out, and you make this cosmic circle, and that's actually a great way of fueling the oxytocin. So easy way when you're feeling that dopamine depletion and you want to go towards something that fills it from the outside, actually seek to get it from the inside first. And I think that's sort of what spirituality is. I don't know, how would you define spirituality, Chick? And what helped you realize it? I mean, it was you understanding you're powerless towards the addiction. You needed something to anchor yourself, you know, a higher power. I guess that's part of what you'd call spirituality, but how would you define it?
In the beginning, there was a doctor back in the 30s that told an alcoholic, which was a founder, that he was hopeless, and that the only thing that can help him is spiritual, that his physical addiction was so strong that he needed a profound personality change. And but he was hopeless because the doctor had not been able to find anyone that was an alcoholic that bad that they could help. And but he said with this guy that the spiritual approach proved the theory that it isn't the physical part of the addiction that's the problem. They call whatever it is that we put in our body or in our head starts a craving. It's not we have a craving that we have to go do it. Once it's in our body, then we can't stop. So the deduction now is the real problem is in our mind. And that's what we have to work on. And you mentioned the breathing. Last week, you know, that lady had the woo, you know.
Yeah, right. Hopefully you've been doing that in public, Chick.
Oh, I have. But out in the mountains, you know. But I believe, you know, clean the body, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
But we have to have a knowledge, or come to believe anyway, that there's a power out there that we can tap into.
Yeah.
And then, I was talking about that big lumberjack guy that was waiting for me when I came out. And finally at 1 a.m, they were shutting it down and I had to go outside and confront him. All of a sudden, just when he was about ready to fly at me, it was like a big cougar, it was terrifying. Around the corner comes a guy on a Harley, a tough motorcycle guy, and he tips over. Have you ever seen somebody tip over on a Harley?
Oh yeah.
Man, I've never seen anything but that very moment. And the big old lumberjack ran over to help him, and I ran and jumped in my truck and got out of there. And I've used that as a power greater than myself was working. And I remember that feeling. And then there was lots of other ones, but nothing like the identifying with other people like me.
Yeah.
And they say we have to be able to help other people with our own addictions. So we all associate together and make friends, and we laugh at each other. We laugh at things that most of the world, the normal people we call them, would think were really morbid, but we laugh at the stupid things that we did, but we laughed. That dopamine.
Yeah.
And I've found that angers and resentments and laughing and accomplishments of real good things. One's negative and one's positive, but that's where with your and my talks, what's going on in our heads, the chemicals. And so the body needs to be cleaned with, like with exercise, with the breathing.
Yeah.
That was really a good one.
Yeah.
And so I found the breathing to be probably one of the most powerful things of all. And the way that happened was when they told me in my recovery to do meditation. And I didn't know what meditation was. So, of course, the thing to do is find an expert. If we need to know something, ask an expert. So I went down to the Zen Center, and the head monk, his name was Rain. I told him I'd like to know how to meditate. Right there in his office, he got me in the position. He got in the position, and I'll never forget this one thing. He says, put your tongue in the roof of your mouth and breathe in, and that way the saliva won't choke you. But it's hard to stay focused, so we have to give our ego a task so that we can stay focused on just the breathing and do the meditation. And he told me that my job is to breathe in counterclockwise around my heart and then out clockwise. And that will trick the ego and the body so that it will leave me alone while I can just be me.
Wow.
And we got to be real good friends, and I'd go down at 6 a.m. and sit there for 45 minutes and just do that with him. And then we would go down to Costa's and have bacon and eggs and coffee.
Nice.
Here's the cool thing. I tested it. I was ran marathons, and the last half of a marathon is the last 3 miles. The first half is the first 22, but
Yeah.
that last 3, the body is really talking, and it wants to stop. It wants, and so I tried that, give him my ego, take that out of it. And so I started breathing in and out and counted to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a little while, and I overcame my body would actually, I could finish the marathon. And another time I tried something else. I tried to memorize the Lord's Prayer, which I never knew, but I knew parts of it. And so when I would, and this is that last 3 miles where, you're hitting the wall.
Yeah.
And I concentrated on that instead of what was happening to me.
Yeah.
And I never made it through the prayer, but what I did was I would say part of it, and then I couldn't remember it, and I was losing my focus. So I'd have to go back to the beginning and see if I could go a little farther and a little farther. Same thing as with the breathing. And another time I practiced some martial arts in my head while I was finishing the marathon. And what I learned was through this exercise and through climbing hikes, going to the top of the mountains, that the closer you get to the top, the more discouraged you are. And with addiction, the closer you get to your bottom, the more you're discouraged you are.
Interesting.
But if you just hang on a little longer, but you have to really focus, you'll make it to the top. So when I start hating it, I know I'm almost there. So I made a decision when I'm hiking the hills, not to make a decision to do anything until I get to the top. And then I can decide if I want to quit going down the other side where it's easy.
That's, I love that policy. Because yeah, if you're like, hey, I've already decided I have to make it to the top. So that is great.
Really, we people who know about being bottoms and know about that, know about discouragement, and we know when we're at our wits' end on anything, we all talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when we're in recovery, somebody that's new doesn't think they can do it, and will say, "You're almost there. You're almost there.
Just
Breathe.
Just
breathe."
keep going, breathe. Yes. Get inside. And so that what your Zen teacher taught you, or the Zen instructor, that's the breathing technique you're often doing when you get acupuncture. Yeah, I'll come in and
Yeah.
you'll say, yep, I've been doing the counterclockwise movement. And yeah, I think it's a really cool analogy, because so many times in life and in any endeavor we're trying to take on, if I'm trying to write a new book or build a new curriculum, it's that, it's Stephen Pressfield. He calls it the resistance. Have you read any of Stephen Pressfield's work?
No, but I'm loving it already.
Yeah, he's
Resistance.
just got, you'd love this, the war of art. And I know, acting has been something you've been involved in as well. And you're just like you've always got a good joke to share with me, which has been fun. But, one of the things that happens is the resistance kicks in, and we feel like, because there's resistance there, we tend to just stay shrunk where we're at. But the resistance is really what we have to go right through. It's like the Ryan Holiday book, The Obstacle is the Way, where you've got to go right through that thing. And so that mindset that you've got of just making it to the top and then deciding is, I think we can all use that in our life. And I know we've got some comments coming in here, Chick. So if you don't mind, let me, okay. We've got, go ahead, Kate. I'll let you kind of share some of the comments. Maybe Chick can comment on this.
Oh yeah. So this is Ann. So I was a total wheat and sugar addict in college. Had no idea why I would binge eat and why. And when I finally learned that those foods can do you, what those foods can do to you, it all made sense. Started meditating, and haven't binged since. Thought I'd have to struggle with that forever. Thank goodness I don't have to. So yeah, that's from Ann, and then yeah, I'll let Chick comment on that.
Yeah, sugar addiction. Yeah.
There's a joke that won the favorite or the best joke in the contest they have in Britain every year, and this was about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and it goes like this, and this joke applies. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson were camping, and they were laying in their sleeping bags, and Sherlock says to Watson, "Watson, look up and tell me what you see." And Watson says, "Oh man, there's all those planets up there. There's got to be a force and a power, it couldn't just." And Sherlock says, "Watson, stop. Somebody stole the tent." And Watson is always famous for overlooking the obvious. And sugar addiction actually is a big part of substance addiction, especially alcohol, because it goes into our bodies as blood sugar. And when we stop doing that, it causes all kinds of hell with the body. So with the new people, while they're beginning to stabilize, we recommend they have a piece of candy or a piece of chocolate, to subsidize that sort of a thing. But the whole point is the obvious is what we're taking into our body, and the clues that we're missing. I was in an acting class one time, or I was in an acting class for like a couple of years, but I would drop my daughter off at her piano lesson across the street, or her guitar lesson, and go over to my acting class. And then she would come over after her class and sit up on the little bleachers and wait for us. And this one particular day, I had been given a scene where I was a detective, and my job was to walk into the room with a 12-year-old prostitute and scare her straight, with facts. And I had a whole list of facts in my lines, and what to tell her. And my daughter came in just before or about the time I started to do this. Now, the acting coach is always drumming into our heads that you have to be believable. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do. That's quite a craft. But this particular day, I let this other actor have it, and I thought I really did well, and I was almost through, and the acting coach shouts, "Chick, Chick, that's not believable. Do it again, only this time do it like you do it at home." And my daughter up in the back shouts, "He did." Well, that little experience changed my life. because the coach knows what's believable. He knows when you're being real. And so did my daughter. And the question was, who am I? Am I a series of just trying to put together a bunch of different characters? Do I have a bunch of views of myself that are all screwed up? Am I all, who am I? And that really changed. Like I had no idea. My reactions and everything were like choices.
Yeah. And so how do you, I mean, if you look at in acting, for example, how do you get to the place where you are, you take on and embody like a new set of rules or a new personality? And one of the things you've mentioned today a couple times is that, we all have to change our personality in order to move away from these addictions. And yet ingrained in us is this belief that our personality is forever with us. So, does acting is acting what helps you metamorphosize into the new version of Chick every day, or how does that play in?
Well, what it did, it shocked me. And we have a list of things that we have to do in order to recover, to purge our old thinking. And one of those is to make a fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves. Like, what was my part in everything? And talk it over with another person who's been through it and write it down, and then tell another person. And in order to do this, we have to be perfectly honest with ourselves. And it's not about what people did to us. I reacted to what people did to us and what my opinion was. I never took the time to look at what my own part was. And it would usually boil down to I was afraid, I had fear, anger, resentments. And so I reacted. But all it was after talking with you, it was I had developed or called up those chemicals, dopamine and that.
Yeah.
And to get past my real triggers into the right thinking, I had to get all of this out and heal or admit that I was at fault and that my thinking was wrong. And that was the beginning. And pretty soon I spent more time laughing than I was crying. Oh, poor old me, I've ruined everything. And then I hear other people, like you just did, I hear other people say, oh, poor old me. And we laugh when somebody says that. I've been with a group of guys when somebody's on the pity pot and they're really seriously thinking about ending it. And they're talking about this. And two or three of the people in the room will go, where, like, and it changes that. You can see that person's psychic completely change. Like all of a sudden they see that how, they laugh at themselves.
Yeah.
And that's how we have a profound personality change. And we call that spirituality, a
Wow.
spiritual experience, little spiritual experiences, like that acting class thing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like a bright light coming off, but it changed me.
That's
And
powerful. And
yeah,
laughter, Chick, from like an anthropology perspective, you know, when we used to roam in groups of 100 to 150, you know, humans would be, you know, hunters and gatherers. One of the ways you could see if somebody was of the same clan, or if you had, you know, camaraderie with these people, is through laughter. And it was like laughter has always kept the human soul and spirit together, but you can't laugh when you're taking yourself seriously. I mean, I know when I'm stressed, yeah, there's very little laughter, right? And one of the beautiful things that that people like yourself do is even when, you know, I'm in a very focused mode, you know, here, and I got my checklist that I'm trying to you know, click off. Chick shows up as a patient, and I'm just like, leave like, oh man, you just tell me some random joke, and I'm just cracking up. And yeah, I appreciate it because you bring laughter into almost every interaction I've had. Even when we had the retreat here at Go Wellness last year, I don't know if you remember that, but Chick and Shelly were here, he and his wife, and you just brought so much fun into the event. It was really, really amazing.
Yeah.
How do you cultivate that skill? What, you know, is it an intention that you have, or is it just part of you?
Well, you said don't take yourself so seriously. That's our rule 62. Don't
Okay.
take yourself so damn seriously. And once we get over this searching of fearless moral inventory, we find out how funny these things are, how stupid we were. And we laugh at stupid, you know, the Three Stooges when you're growing up, you know, and and I found that I prefer that. Now, probably people that are listening may not be active or had addictions, but they know somebody who has. And there's also that can cause illness because we don't know what to do with our loved one that is self-destructing in front of our very eyes. And there's no power on earth that can stop that person from self-destructing. And so how do we react? Well, there's a joke about that. There's a joke about a lot of these things. We call the loved ones, our loved ones who are watching us self-destruct, we call them Alanons. And back in the original days, the alcoholics would get together and bring their wives, and the wives would be in one room, and they've got a program going. And the joke is, how many Alanons does it take to screw in a light globe? None. They just detach and let it screw itself. And so they don't have to suffer. They have learned that they don't have to suffer when their alcoholic goes out there or their drug addict, because it's eventually, you know, I mean, they're just powerless over that too. So the trick is to know when we're powerless, and then there's not much we can do. If it's somebody else, there's not much we can do. And crap, I don't know where I'm going with this. But the impossible becomes possible.
That's a good way to say it. No, I think you explained it really well as far as why you bring humor and laughter in everything you do, and then being able to detach allows you to take yourself less seriously, and understanding that we are powerless over, you know, sometimes people are going to have the behaviors they're going to have, and as much as we want to change that, we can't. I can't tell you how many patients, you know, I've just I've been so almost like heartbroken because I'm like, man, they're just not making the changes that are going to be necessary in order for them to get over this disease pattern they've got, or they're unwilling to be open-minded to these possibilities that are out there. And so, yeah, you know, as a human like you are, who really cares about people and wants to see change, at the end of the day, the more attached we become to their behavior and their choices, the harder it is to not take ourselves seriously and think that the world is just going to fall apart. And so I think it's just this funny paradox that we all live in, trying to keep our sense of humor around things, but not get bogged down into the seriousness of it, but also to stay empowered and keep moving forward. So it's yeah, I think humor is always when we're taking ourselves a little too serious, it's always nice to kind of step back. And I know that's what Cade's a really good, you know, he and I have a lot of fun together, because we have to infuse a lot of what we feel are in seriousness into the organization, or Cade does anyways. But at the same time, yeah, he's a good outlet for me, and hopefully I am for him sometimes too.
Oh yes. Yeah, and that's what makes I think laughter is just it's intoxicating too. Just makes it's got like there's probably some scientific addiction to laughter. Sometimes it's like that's the best medicine, right?
Yeah. Serotonin is what gets released when we laugh. And so you're just bathing your brain and just feel good. Your mood gets elevated. It feels really, really nice to laugh. Yeah, I love it.
The probably this is a good time to bring the point that we have to let our bodies or our brain, or what would call that, the chemical factory up there, get back to making the chemicals that we like so much, rather than put stuff in our bodies that does it, because then the chemical factory shuts down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And laughing is, and so is crying or whatever, will help stimulate that and keep it going. And I think it's much better to like admit that I was wrong, rather than try and blame it onto somebody else, because then everybody's fighting, and now we've got the bad chemical side of the factory putting out pollutants in our, and that's why I like acupuncture so much, because it straps you down with all those pins in you, but it also feels so good after.
Yeah.
And,
After I'm done torturing you, it feels good because
yeah, you know, I originally started doing acupuncture because of headaches
yeah,
that I was getting, and it was some kind of an imbalance, but they were horrible every other day.
yeah.
And I don't know what you did with my headaches, but I hope you haven't stored them and waiting to give them back to me.
I'm just waiting for this conversation to go awry.
That's a good point. So if I don't want to get tortured, then I have to admit when I'm wrong.
Oh, yes. Beautiful. Yeah.
That's one of my sayings around here. My marriage has gotten way better since I started saying, oops, my bad, sorry. I can't believe I did that, you know, just.
Yeah. And it takes, it's so funny because it's just that quick shift, because I think as kids, we don't want to disappoint our parents, and we're making a lot of stupid mistakes as kids. And so we, you know, sometimes we bring that into adulthood when it's like, man, Reagan, just own up to this mistake, and then everything clears up. It's that one little, it's a little uncomfortable to say oops to your wife because your ego kicks in, right? And then, but when you do that, it's just like, man, it's like ironing a shirt. It looks so much better, and it fits better, and it looks better, and everybody likes it more.
Yeah, that ego is not me.
Right.
That ego is what screwed me up in my acting classes. You know,
Just got in the way.
yeah, all my life.
Yeah, always there, man.
Yeah.
Well, Chick, this has been a really powerful conversation. I really appreciate you coming on today. Cade, what have you gotten out of this conversation today? Any big takeaways from you?
It, I love how you just put it. If you, because I think maybe some of our listeners today, maybe you're struggling personally with addiction. I think almost everybody knows someone that struggles with addiction, and I think that was one thing. If you got to be able to disconnect yourself from that, because I think a lot of times, and we've seen people, or maybe we've done it ourselves, as you internalize that that behavior that someone's doing, and you're just trying to like force a square peg into a round hole sometimes, and and it's okay to laugh.
Yeah,
That was the other thing I really liked is disconnect from some of those things. It's okay. You're not a bad person if you do. And then just laughter is amazing medicine. I love that.
awesome. Chick, any final words of wisdom before we close up today?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person for wisdom. I would say to be able to recognize what my part is in when I'm wrong, and look over my life and find out where I was wrong, and go to those people and admit that. Whenever you don't have to search them out, but whenever the opportunity arises, without hurting them, of course, but to know whatever the word is, propensity to make mistakes, to know what that is, and to avoid that. I don't know.
It's great. Yeah,
Yeah. If,
I think it's
if you
awesome.
find somebody you don't like, walk up and laugh at them. I don't know.
Right. If you're watching the news and it's a story you don't agree with, laugh at it. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much we can do with that. So thanks so much, Chick. Really appreciate you. Appreciate our relationship we've had over the last decade and a half, and you've just been so fun to have a relationship with, and I appreciate you. So thanks for being on the show again. And everybody, we really appreciate you for being with us. We'll be on at the same time next week. Make sure you get in our healthy challenges. Actually, next week we're out. It's Thanksgiving.
Next week is Thanksgiving, so we'll let you guys all take a break.
We'll see you in 2 weeks. And get on the healthy challenge, everybody. I want to see you in there. So we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
And did post the link in your health transformation challenges. Take a look at that. And everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks
Bye-bye.
again, Chick. We'll see you guys.
Thanks. Bye, Chick.